Leah was a cheerful girl, the kind who greeted the sun every morning and smiled at everyone she met along the way. She loved to talk, to ask questions, and to listen to stories. But there was something she loved even more: spending time among the trees. In the forest, she felt the world grow slower and softer, as if every leaf were holding a secret waiting to be heard. From a very young age, she discovered that she could communicate with trees. It was not something anyone taught her. It simply happened one day when she placed her hand on a tree trunk and a warm voice answered in her heart. From that moment on, whenever she touched a leaf or hugged a trunk, she felt a story, an emotion, or a piece of advice flow toward her. The old trees of the forest, tall and wise, told her stories from ancient times, from when the earth was young and the rivers sang without fear. Beneath the shade of those green giants, Leah learned about patience, about the cycles of life, and about how even loss can give birth to new beginnings. The trees spoke to her of the past, of everything that had been, and she listened as if reading invisible pages written by time itself. But the forest trees were not the only ones who shared their voices with her. In the city, between concrete streets, tall buildings, and cracked sidewalks, small, young trees also longed to be heard. Their voices were softer, sometimes trembling, but filled with courage. They spoke of resilience, of adapting to a difficult world, and of continuing to grow even when there seemed to be no space left to do so. Leah understood that from the old trees she learned what the world had been, and from the young trees she learned what it could become. Between the two, she found a balance that filled her with hope. Whenever she felt sad, confused, or weak, she only had to touch a leaf or wrap her arms around a trunk. Then the words would come. Sometimes they were ideas that helped her solve a problem. Other times they were gentle advice that showed her a new path. And in the hardest moments, they were simple whispers that said, "Keep going, everything will change." But the trees, however, had asked her for something very important. "Our gift must remain in silence," the great oak once told her. "If humans know that we speak, they will try to control us or exploit us." Even though Leah spoke with everyone and filled the town with laughter, she kept that secret deep in her heart. One day, large machines came to the forest. The ground trembled, and the old trees felt fear. In the city, the young trees sensed the same threat, like a shadow stretching over their roots. Leah heard all their voices at once, filled with anguish and hope, calling for her help. She wanted to scream, to tell the world what was happening, but she remembered her promise. That night, she walked to the heart of the forest and hugged the oldest tree. Her tears fell onto its bark. "I cannot tell your secret," she whispered, "but I will not abandon you." Then she sang, not with human words, but with the love she felt for every leaf and every root. Something changed. The wind became gentler, not because the world had suddenly turned magical, but because people began to notice what they had once ignored. Some neighbors stopped to look at the trees more carefully. Others began to speak of them not as obstacles, but as part of their home. The machines did not disappear, but they paused, and sometimes a pause is enough for something to begin to change. Some engineers reviewed their plans. Some families asked what would happen to the forest. Some children began spending more time beneath the branches. Little by little, destroying everything no longer seemed so simple. The old trees continued telling stories of patience. The young trees in the city, still surrounded by concrete, felt that someone was finally seeing them. "We are not saved, but we are not forgotten," they whispered. Leah kept walking between the forest and the city. She kept laughing with people, going to school, living her life. But every day she found a few minutes to touch a leaf or rest her forehead against a trunk. Then the words would come. Sometimes they were ideas that helped her solve a problem. Other times they were gentle advice that showed her a new path. And in the hardest moments, they were simple whispers that said, "Keep going. Everything will change." Not everything was perfect. Some trees were cut down, others were allowed to stay. But now there were people who defended their roots. Leah understood that she could not save the world alone, but she also realized something even more important. A heart that listens can awaken many others. And so, without grand miracles or shining magic, the forest and the city slowly began to learn how to live together. And as long as someone, somewhere, keeps hugging a tree when they need strength, the future will always have a chance.